Hey guys, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Baseball Strong. This is Jose Vazquez, along with my producer Kevin. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm living. Doing good. How about yourself?
Good, doing good. So hopefully we can bring some interesting topics, something that our audience can appreciate and learn from.
Yeah.
That's the goal. That's the
Yeah.
goal is for everyone to walk away with more knowledge and more ideas of what to do. So today's episode, I want to talk about baseball. So I want to talk about arm care. The topic is efficiency over velocity. So in today's baseball world, there is a fascination with throwing harder, and it is very understandable. The big leagues are full of guys throwing 100 miles an hour. I have even seen or heard of high school pitchers that can throw 100 miles an hour. And although that is great, not everyone is able to sustain that. And so it is also well known that you're not drafted right in today's baseball where you're not drafted because you have efficient mechanics or because you have control. You're drafted because you throw hard. Then when you're drafted, then they try to make you into a control pitcher. So it seems like a backwards type of system, but it is the system. And if you want to make it to the big leagues, you got to throw hard. You got to get there somehow. But not everyone is going to get there, and not everyone is going to be able to sustain that kind of velocity. So today, I want to talk to the parents of middle school, high school athletes that either have experienced some sort of shoulder pain or something to look for or look out for, because one of the most common reasons for shoulder elbow injuries in the ages of between 11 and 12 and 18 is growth plate issues. During the middle school and high school years, the growth plates are still open for many kids, and that's one of those things that we don't know they're still open until an injury happens and you go to the doctor and you get an x-ray and the doctor says, oh yeah, your growth plate is inflamed or you have a stress fracture in your growth plate. So what I want to talk about today is the number one thing that you should be looking at for is growth spurts. When your child goes through a growth spurt, they gain 2 to 3 inches in a year or more, and all of a sudden you notice that he's throwing harder. Everybody gets excited.
Oh yeah.
Everyone starts to think, oh, great, man, now I've gone from 78 to 82. Man, I'm on my way. Hold on for a second. Because the thing that we overlook is that when kids go through growth spurts, the thing we need to understand is that the bones get longer faster than the muscles and tendons. And so what happens, it's almost as if you gain an accelerator, but you don't have brakes.
Oh.
And so we notice that the kid is throwing harder and we get excited. That's when the problems begin. My message to all parents of middle school and high school athletes, and even to the athletes that are listening, if you go through a growth spurt, instead of focusing and celebrating this new gained velocity, my suggestion is look for efficiency. Work towards movement control, body control, because as the bones get longer, it increases the lever. So yes, you throw harder because it's a longer lever. You are able to generate more force, but those forces are absorbed by the body, and the body does not have the proper brake system. So when you notice that your kid goes through a growth spurt, instead of focusing on velocity, focus on other things such as agility, arm care, shoulder exercises, emphasize strength training. One of the things that we need to understand is that the shoulder is such a delicate structure, and we take it for granted from the time that we are in elementary school. We pick up a ball and we start throwing it around, and we are, like kids. We just start playing catch without any thought. And as we grow, even at the big league level, they still sometimes do that. We forget that without a proper warm up, without proper preparation, we're putting that shoulder and that elbow at risk. So for parents of kids in these ages, please really take notice of how your kid is moving. Now your kid is gained 3 or 4 inches and he's a pitcher, or even a baseball player. It doesn't matter, because I've seen position players get injured in this way too. If you notice that they're a little more awkward, they look like they're a little tighter. They complain about tightness. They complain about hamstring tightness. They complain about hip tightness. They seem to have changed their arm slot. They throw different. They move different. Those are all signs that the body is trying to control this newfound height. So the brain is struggling to send the right signals, to put on the brakes at the right time, and to allow the body to move in a certain way. And so we need to really, really pay attention during these middle school and high school years to those kind of things. Also, you'll notice that your son will complain of elbow or shoulder soreness that lasts more than 24 hours. If your son plays baseball and he pitches and it takes him about 3 or 4 days to get over that soreness, that's an indication that they don't have good breaks. The growth plates are being stressed. So I'm bringing this up because I want to give you guys, the parents, the ammunition, the information to help guide your kid's career. In my opinion, regardless of whether they play on a select team or high school team, it is not the coach's responsibility. It's not the trainer's responsibility to keep your kid healthy. In my opinion, it's the parents and the kid's responsibility to stay healthy. Because if I practice for 2 hours today, the other 22 hours, they're somewhere else. They're either with you or at school or doing something else. So like when it comes to the overall well-being of the athlete, in my opinion, if they're young, it should be up to the parents to help in this area. So when you see this, okay, what do you do? Okay, one of the things that I suggest, number one, stress more strength and conditioning. So a lot of people still have the misconception that if you lift weights, that the growth plates are going to be stunted. Well, that's further from the truth. If you put pressure from a strength training, exercise training perspective, the bones get stronger. At this age, their muscles are not growing at the rate of the bones. So most of the weight training is going to help with coordination and stress the bones to help the bones get stronger. Now, throwing a baseball does not help the bones get stronger. So even though they're both exercises, but just to make sure that we differentiate between the two, stress on bones creates tougher bones. So emphasize strength training. Also, shoulder care. The shoulder is composed of muscles that are built for stability or endurance, which means they respond better to exercises that are high rep, low intensity, such as tubing or smaller dumbbells, and it also responds better to more frequent training. For example, squats. When I do squats, in general, you can't do squats more than twice a week because if you do, you're going to be sore all week. Those muscles require more rest. They require a different type of intensity. But the shoulders and the forearm muscles can be worked just about every day. So my suggestion is if you train your shoulders, if you have these kind of problems and you train your shoulders twice a week, you might have to kick that up a notch for 4 to 6 days a week. Because that's the way that the shoulder muscles respond. They respond to high repetition, more frequent workouts. Also, make sure that before you practice, before you begin to throw, you do some kind of shoulder exercise. it's commonplace that when we play select ball, we're in a tournament, we're waiting around, and all of a sudden they call us and, hey, we got to go. We've got to play in 20 minutes. Well, you know, uh, if that's the case, then you got to parents, figure out a way to be ready. Have your kid, before he plays catch, have your kid do a little bit of shoulder care so that the shoulder muscles are warmed up properly before they start playing catch. That is so huge. Uh, I heard this the other day. That I had a kid that I've worked with for a while. That this kid is 13 years old, and he was in that situation, and they threw him out there in practice, and they hadn't warmed up properly, and they hadn't thrown very hard. And the coach is telling him, "Hey, come on, throw the ball harder." And the kid said, "Coach, I haven't warmed up properly." And this is a kid that had a shoulder stress fracture or the growth plate, and he learned. So he told the coach, "Coach, I haven't warmed up properly, so I'm just going to throw under control. I'm not going to push my shoulder." And the coach was like, "Oh, okay." So not only should you emphasize exercise, but also empower your kid to say to the coach, "Hey, look, my shoulder's not feeling well today, or I'm not warmed up properly," and make sure you make good throws, but don't get out of hand. Tone down the intensity, slow it down. Another thing when it comes to taking care of this and addressing this is maybe perhaps reduce the intensity of throwing. When you throw bullpens, when you play catch, just throw at a lower intensity. When you're going through these situations, let's say you don't have pain, but if you're in this age and you tend to get some of these symptoms when your shoulder gets inflamed and it takes a little while to get going, play at a lower intensity. Throw at a lower intensity. Work on being efficient. Work on being smooth with your throws. Work on being accurate with your throws. This is the perfect opportunity to become really, really athletic. Instead of worrying about how hard I throw, how about you worry about how accurate I throw, how well I move my legs, how well I use my glove side, how well I do this or the other. Instead of focusing on the velocity you gain because you got taller, focus on becoming more agile, being more athletic. So another thing parents to look out for is when they pitch, how is their front leg? Does their front leg collapse? Is it firm? Does the arm angle change? Do they get tired after a couple of innings? Those are all signs that these things are happening. So you can work on pitching mechanics without working on intensity. There's plenty of drills that you could do to work on controlling your front leg, controlling your front arm, controlling your trunk rotation. There's plenty of ways to work on pitching without actually throwing a baseball. There are a lot of really creative ways to work on your pitching mechanic. There's all kinds of tools like the water bags, the medicine balls, those kinds of things. You can use those things to really, really work on your mechanics without actually throwing a baseball. Another area to focus on is your thoracic mobility or your mid-back. When kids get taller, the middle of the back gets really, really stiff. When the middle of the back gets really, really stiff, the shoulder blade does not rotate along the rib cage properly, and when their shoulder blade does not rotate around the rib cage properly, it causes the rotator cuff to not function properly, and it could cause impingement at the shoulder joint. The shoulder joint and the shoulder blade and rib joints, they have to move in conjunction with one another. If they don't, you're going to create impingement at the shoulder, and you can create these types of problems. So the middle of the back is an area of when these kids go through growth spurts, gets really, really tight. One sign is they complain about knots right in the between their shoulder blades. When you have a kid at this age that is always complaining of knots between their shoulder blades, that's an indication that their thoracic spine is not moving properly. So be on the lookout for that. Another thing I mentioned, hamstrings and hips get tight. One of the things that also happens, they lose hip rotation, hip internal rotation. In order to throw a baseball properly, efficiently, when my front foot lands and my upper body is coming over my front leg, my hip has to rotate a certain way. And if my hip rotates if my hip is too tight and it does not rotate properly, it does not allow my upper body to come. It's gonna the stress is gonna go right to the arm, and the one that always kind of gets the brunt of the force is the elbow. So again, focus on hamstring flexibility, hip mobility, because those things always transfer the energy, transfer the forces to the shoulder and elbow. So as part of the show today, I'm going to include a checklist on the link for parents, what to look for and what to do when you see these kinds of signs and symptoms. So when you see your child and you see these symptoms, you see these signs, they've gone through a growth spurt, always think efficiency over velocity. Work on control. Work on being smooth. That is the key. The nervous system is hungry. It's hungry for information. The nervous system is asking the muscles and the bones to feed them information about how to do these movements. And if you just skip right along and forget about this phase and you just throw hard, number one, you're going to grow. If you don't get injured, you're going to grow through this, and lose lose the opportunity to become more athletic, and you're going to grow up and you're going to have terrible mechanics. So this is the time of the year where, the time of the lifespan that you can gain athletic ability. So again, parents, be on the lookout. Whenever you notice a growth spurt, really, really, really pay attention to what your child looks like, how he recovers, what he's doing. So that's my message for today. The second part of the show is I want to talk to all the clients that are listening. When I stepped away from Major League Baseball, I told myself, I want to work with people that want to invest in themselves. Those who are going to spend the time and the money working on their bodies. One of the things that I feel strongly about, the medical system is not built for your total health and well-being. It is built around visits. It is built around money. So if you really want to invest in yourself, you got to spend the time and the money to get better. So if you want to get better, come see me at Eclipse Sports and Rehabilitation. Looking forward to seeing you guys. Check us out next week. I'm going to cover more baseball injuries. I want to dedicate this channel to educating athletes on how to recover, how to prevent pain, and how to be the best version of themselves. Take care.